What was it like working on a channel with 1.65 million subscribers?
I do not want to be a full-time YouTuber.
So do you think YouTube game dev combo is worth it to start in 2025?
I don't think anyone has actually cracked the game dev YouTube algorithm.
I'm not a cozy gamer, but when I think about making a cozy game, I feel like it would be a challenge to demo it.
I think my part I'm more worried about is retaining them.
Today, I sat down with Nathan Roner, who for over 3 years was a full-time YouTube manager and editor. But now he's switched up and due to his obsession with video games, is working on his first commercial game, Coco Loco. I got a chance to ask him about all of these things, including the game dev YouTube space, and I'm really excited to share this conversation. If you enjoy, be sure to hit subscribe, and if you're already subscribed, hit the like button. Let's begin. So I want to start by breaking the fourth wall just a little bit. I find it hard in this new podcast to know how to start a conversation, but you have also started a podcast with some buddies, it looks like, called the Playtest Panel. I know it's a little bit of a different format because you guys have some recurring people running it, but how do you guys actually start your podcast?
Very awkwardly. When I start it, it's usually because I'm used to recording videos. I'm used to jumping into it, but even then, the intros I always stuff up in. My two friends one has done devlog series in the past, but I don't know what it is with the camera and like them performing live. It's always it feels like they're at gunpoint most of the time. For me, it's usually we'll have just an intro being like, welcome back to the playtest panel. And then we usually direct it by just asking someone a question. So one thing that we like to do is ask everyone how their week was, what they did. But yeah, I'll be honest, like podcasting, because there's so many different formats and genres, I agree. Like sometimes it's really hard to start a podcast. Like how do you intro it basically? So that's what we do. And then in the past, when I've done solo ones, it's usually just introducing the person. But I usually like to ask them a question that I know kind of gets them talking. Because that's always the awkward part, I think, with podcasting. It's like, well, I don't want them just to say like a one-line answer and that, but yet you want to start a conversation. So that's what I try and do.
For sure. Well, that leads super well because that's basically my strategy here. You've been working on a commercial game called Coco Loco, which is looking really interesting. So just how's that going and kind of where did that project blossom from?
It's going well, slowly, unfortunately, because I'm also studying full-time now. Like this week, the past 2 weeks, I haven't been able to work on it at all, which has been really upsetting. Well, that's a lie. I always find ways to like work on it secretly. Excuses for myself. But I'm really hoping there's a convention here in Melbourne, Australia in March next year, which I'm hoping to showcase at. It's a smaller games expo, but it's one that I've had friends go to and it's really good for showing your game off. And so my soft deadline for myself is to get a demo for that. And then reception from there, I will then kind of gauge how much more time I put into it. How I got started doing it is really funny. It was meant to be like a 6-month small game to release commercially and then move on to the next thing. And now it's been 4 years. It started off, I'd just gotten married. And so before then, I was working on some VR games, my channel. There was one called Fun Factory, which was basically like a factory sim, but was going to be more satire. Kind of like Job Simulator in a way, looking back now, but I don't know. I just wanted to make a game in VR because at the time I was really obsessed with that. But I dropped it just because at the time as well, like VR was in such a bad space in terms of tools. I feel like every 4 months they would introduce a new way Unity would interact with the VR headset. Then Valve would go change the input binding for certain things, and I'd spend 6 months working on interfaces of stuff, and then they'd be like, "Hey guys, reinvented it," and it's like faster and better, and I'm like, "Okay, well I should probably use the new one." And so I got a bit burnt out doing that. And so I got married, and I promised myself during a honeymoon, no games, no game ideas, no nothing, because I'm very obsessed with making games. But I promised myself, okay, it's time just to focus on my wife. And then once we'd finished the honeymoon, I was like, okay, I'm going to make one small project and release it. It's going to be your game for my wife. And I was like, at the time, it was winter for us. So it was lots of hot chocolates, hot beverages, teas, and that sort of thing. And my wife, she, at the time, loved Animal Crossing. We both loved Club Penguin growing up. And so I kind of thought, okay, I can make like a cozy flash game. Like I love flash games. So maybe I'll get one of those games I played and reinvent it kind of in a more modern approach. And I did something in Unity, a little prototype, and then things kind of developed from there. And it's been a lot of learning and changes. The core ideas stayed the same, I think, and like why I'm making the game has stayed the same. But there's definitely been a lot of learning the past 4 years.
Very cool. You say that you're going to kind of gauge how much you keep working on this based on how this potential demo goes. What's kind of the range of how you're thinking? If it's, very mild, success at the demo, or if people love it, how are you kind of ranging how much time you're going to spend on it in those two scenarios?
So I'm hoping to get a Steam page up, and we'll gauge the interest off of the wish lists and obviously feedback at the convention. If people are, coming back to play it more often, then I know, okay, there's something here I need to keep doing. For me, it's like, okay, if I need to get it finished, I will do everything myself. I will do a short story that I can, like everything that I can do within a year, basically, in scope. That's what I'll try and do. If it gets more interest and bigger, I would probably try to bring on more people. Or I would even, at the point now, looking at finding ways to fund a project, whether that's going to publishers or even, I don't want to do any crowdfunding, but at this point, it's kind of the one I'm leaning most towards doing. And then in that case, then we would expand a lot on the game. Right now, it is just basic interactions. In terms of progression upgrades, it's just you select one item and it's an upgrade for another one. If we would go bigger and better, we would do bigger stories in like the story sections, having dialogue trees, but also like customization. Right now, when you upgrade or customize something, you're just getting a better item. I would work on full level editors, basically. Things that would take a lot more time and more people to do. But yeah, that's kind of because that's kind of how I'm gauging it right now, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I'm not a cozy gamer, but when I think about making a cozy game, I feel like it would be a challenge to demo it. Do you have any worry about like getting people in fast enough, or is that not really a concern in your mind as a developer of a cozy game?
Not so much. I think there's definitely aspects I know with game conventions, certain games perform better. I've got some friends, they do, especially like co-op games or party games. I know a few devs who showcase their game at conventions like PAX, and they're massive. They've always got heaps of people because you can have 4 players at once, and there's like, their friends watching and everything. And so those games do really well at conventions. But then I'd also say they don't do so well commercially because in real life, there's not as many people playing those games. Because conventions are communal spaces, those communal games perform better. With cozy games, I find it's interesting because it's very broad, and I think there's definitely target audiences. But I've also found people who aren't my target audience be interested in the idea. One thing I'm really curious to see is how kids interact with it and kind of finding a balance with that. Because right now the game, it isn't hard, but I've definitely put a time pressure within the levels, which I'm trying to remove because I feel like it kind of ruins the cozy aspect. But I hope, at least in terms of my marketing and the style of the game, I draw on the right people that want to play the game. Because once I say, cozy cafe game, cute graphics, every like 20-year-old woman's like, oh, okay, let me play it. They all go, oh, yes, that's so cute.
Right.
And so that's my demographic, right? And so I'm hoping I can draw them in with that. I think my part I'm more worried about is retaining them and making them want to keep playing the game. That's where I'm a little bit more stressed, I think, in terms of the design and even things like pacing and progression. I'm all doing myself, so I have no idea how any of that's going to turn out.
Yeah. If it all goes well, how long of an experience will it be? Or is it one of those kind of games like in Animal Crossing where you can sort of continually spend time in it forever?
So in terms of like a main story, which I will have, I'm hoping to have it about 3 hours. I want to be a short game because I think, at least for me, there's so many games to play. My Steam library is never finished. And I think shorter games, at least within that time period, I think like if I can sit down an afternoon and have a full experience, I feel like that's good value for me. I think all my games are going to be in a much shorter end. I'll probably add certain game modes and challenges. People can kind of play the game endlessly, like arcade modes. But that might come in post-launch content. The game itself, I hope, can just be something people can enjoy on the weekend and then like move on with their lives if they need to. Because that's kind of, I hate now when games just steal all my time to the point where like I can't enjoy other things, and then it becomes a chore as well. Which I don't want my games to be chores for people. I want them to enjoy their time and then move on.
Yeah, and I saw that you also semi-recently did a playtest using Steam. Can you kind of talk about that experience? And then also, I'm super curious about how playtest works. So even getting a little granular of like, how do you actually receive the feedback and how did you utilize all that and move forward with that?
Yeah, so I've had like on the Steam backend, like everything kind of set up to eventually launch the full Steam page. Like I paid the developer fee and stuff, but you'll still get emails about new features Steam introduces. And so one was the Steam playtest. So the way that they can do testing on Steam right now, basically, is you can have either your main build, which you can then give keys out and people can play. And that's all connected to kind of the same IP of the game. They're doing the same thing now, I think, with demos as well. So in the Steam backend, you can have just the one game, and that can be your full build. You can add the demo, but kind of in terms of reviews and those sorts of things, they're all associated as one, which can be a pro and con, right? So if your game as a demo performs really well, then that can then go over to your full game. And so they kind of grabbed that and then made a Steam playtest version as well. So it's not the full game, it's actually a separate key and almost like subcomponent in the developer backend. Which I thought, hey, yeah, that's because I don't want to give people full Steam key access right now. Like, I don't want everyone that knows about the game to have access to so when the game gets fully released, they have access already. Like I want some people to buy this game. And so I also wanted to test the playtest features because I know Steam wants feedback and I like to have Valve's attention at some point in my life, like, you know. So I thought I'd try that. And I also knew just like the ease of access as well would be really good, just having Steam there. Like for playtesters, right, I give them a key to games in the library. That's it. Everything else, like when it updates, it auto updates for them. I can do dev posts, which just tells them updates for the game. Like it's just like a regular Steam game for them. But for me in the back end, it means I can still be safe and secure and that sort of thing. So I did like a first round of playtesting, which was very interesting in terms of what I got the feedback on. But I think it's also because of the way that I asked for the feedback. So what I did was I gave keys. I told them to play by themselves. I didn't watch them. And I had a form that they would just write things in, or I talked to friends on Discord or whatever after they played about what they thought. A lot of it was just through text chat. And it was funny because a lot of the feedback wasn't about gameplay. It was about usability of things. They were like, well, like one friend was like, "Oh, Nathan, the soundbar doesn't work." I'm like, yeah, because it's a placeholder. I just need the gameplay feedback. There's hardly any sound, so it adjusts the sound. It's too loud. I'm like, can't you use your computer's sound to like adjust the volume? Like, so a lot of feedback on that end. People were like, I can't do key rebindings. There was one valid one which like there's no tutorial, and you just gave me a key, and I don't know how to play the game. I was like, oh yeah, I should probably add something there to tell you how to play the game. But in terms of actual gameplay, most of them were like, I see the vision, but it needs more work. But in terms of feedback, there wasn't a lot to give. And so I'm definitely going to change that in the future. When there's an update, everyone sits down on a call like this. I watch you play, and then we talk through the feedback. I actually had a friend the other night did it with his game, and we all hopped on, played it one by one. And it was really good because you obviously got verbal feedback straight away, but you could also see how they played. Like when you have moments of silence and you developer are watching players experience it, there's things they won't tell you that you can kind of pick up while watching them play. And even just like one thing we didn't do was webcam, but I would love to do that with game conventions and just watch people how they react to certain elements, because I think that helps you gauge how people are feeling about your game, which I think is an important aspect as a game designer.
It also just sounds like a fun time jumping on a call with some of your friends and watching them play a thing that you made. That sounds super cool. Do you have any goals for this game, either financial or just kind of emotional, or how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely it's my first commercial game. Like, I just want to get a game out there. I want that to be a game that I can be proud of. I guess for a developer aspect of it, one of my goals is to really understand Unreal. So when I first started making the game, it was in Unity, and then the whole Unity runtime fee happened, and I was like, all right, time to jump ship. And so I tried all the game engines, tried even building things from scratch, and Unreal was just the one that worked for me at the time. And so I've just been learning that. And so a lot of the goals for me with Loco is actually learning how to build good projects in Unreal. I recently reworked the save system because I wasn't doing it correctly. And that was just through obviously playing the game and using Profiler to kind of see how it performed, and then reading documentation and forums and how people like best practice, right? So half of the goal is to kind of master Unreal and know how to properly use it for all aspects. Like, now I know how to do a save system. Now I know how easy inputs are. And I know a lot of, if I was to make a new project, where I would start from. Where when I started Loco in Unreal, it was almost from a Unity approach, where it was like, okay, there's a game object, and then you populate that from a single component. Where Unreal, there's a lot more inheritance and steps and different types of blueprints and stuff, which you're not aware of when you start out. I would love for it to commercially just pay a little bit, be able to upgrade my PC, pay for some game conventions, and just, it doesn't have to be a lot, but I think enough for me to go, okay, I can make another one. If I made like 50 cents from this game after 4 years of work, it would be disappointing. That I would, or maybe I would after all the expenses. But yeah, like I'm not expecting a massive success, but I would like something that I can be proud of and feel motivated to go to the next one. I will still make the next one, even if this one flops. But I think another goal I would love is to have this game on Switch. Initially, that's kind of one of the things I was really pushing for early on, trying to get because for Nintendo, they want a trailer and proof of it being on other platforms. And so my push for it on Steam was actually so I could get it on Switch. But now I've kind of leant back on that, being like, okay, maybe that's not the best idea. I've heard horror stories of porting to Switch, and even just getting on Nintendo's radar, it can be quite hard at times. So it'd be awesome to have a physical copy of my game for the Switch. But it's also something where I know the headache that it's going to cause to get there. So I'm almost like, okay, I can wait for that. We'll focus on the Steam release, and whatever happens from there happens. But yeah, I guess the last thing really is just to like improve my skills. So the initial reason for the project was to get better at programming and 3D modeling, to the point where someone else would hire me at their studio. I guess that's still kind of relevant, but not so much now, because that solo path is kind of looking a lot more enticing to me.
Yeah, I think the absolute dream that I've thought about, even just in my daydreaming, is like making a game that goes big enough you could like know it's profitable to pay someone to port it to Switch, and just be like, here you go, here's my thing, please make it happen. And then you just, one day it's on the Switch. So maybe Loco will go big enough that you could do that. That would be really cool. If we could take a quick little detour, you mentioned game engines and switching from Unity to Unreal and trying a lot of them. I think that game engines are something that people get kind of hung up on sometimes. So for anyone watching that is either like they just want to make games and they're kind of stuck there, or maybe a beginner, what do you think, or do you think there even is a best one for an early dev?
I think there's definitely engines that are easier for beginners, but my advice would be just to try them all. And whatever sticks best with you, just go with that. Like for me, Unreal did not click for years. Like I was trying it back in the Unreal development kit days, back in like the early 2010s, before Unreal was like fully public. And back then it just was like not clicking for me. Unity clicked for me best back in the day, and it did for a very long time. Until it came to a point where I could see the growing pains of the engine. And me as a developer, I was just getting annoyed at certain aspects of it. Where I was like, I can't do it. Same with Godot. Like I no hate to Godot developers, but like the node system just annoys me so much. Like I just don't like the way that the engine is structured, personally, and so that's not the tool for me. Like there's aspects of Godot that I love in terms of like its rendering, how lightweight it is. Like it's got some really good pros, but some of the cons are just too annoying for me as a developer, which with some time maybe I could grow out of. But really for developers who want to start out, like it doesn't matter if you're using Scratch or Game Maker, Pico 8. Like when I go to game dev meetups, just everyone's doing so much. Like I know one dev, he will just make his own little game engines every year or so for game jams, and he just picks a new programming language that he's interested in. Like he's a programmer by trade, so he knows what he's doing. But he'll just pick out certain things that annoys him about like something and try to fix it in his own tool. And so really just download what works for you and work on that. Obviously, if you want to be a hireable developer, like learning Unreal or Unity is good to have. Like if you want to get a job in games, my advice would be find job listings that you would want to apply for, see requirements, and work on that. That's one reason why I've switched to Unreal, because I knew there were some bigger developers that if you have the tool set of Unreal under your belt, then they're like, great, you're hired. But if you're just starting out, I think it also depends what you want to do. I think that it comes into a bigger question of like, why do you want to make games? Tooling is one thing, but then there's also like, do you even want to make games, or do you want to write stories, or do you want to do art? Are you an animator or a rigger? Are you just a programmer? In that case, maybe you don't even need a game engine. So yeah, it's a very hard question to answer broadly. At the end of the day, you have to kind of experiment and ask locally as well. Like ask people who kind of know you personally, and they can also help guide you. That's something that I think has helped me a lot as well.
Yeah. Now, in addition to trying lots of game engines, you've been doing game dev for over a decade. And as someone myself who's given up on game dev a couple of times, what do you think about it for you? Why are you able to keep going in something that's as difficult but also as rewarding as game dev?
I think it's an obsession, an addiction, something that isn't natural or really good to have. I think, yeah, it would be great if a few years ago I could have been like, you know what, this isn't it, and move on to something else. Because game dev takes so much time and energy, and like the amount of devs I know who've just been working at it for years, and still you kind of look at the effort they've put in and realize what they get out of it doesn't match up. Like if you were to do any other passion project, you might see more results. I just think you need to love making games in a very weird sense that, certain people have a passion for painting or for music that you need to have for games. Like the reason why I'm able to keep doing it is because it just gives me this weird burning sensation of like, I love making games. For me personally, there's also parts of it where I think a lot about my legacy and what I want to achieve in my life. And I think games is a way in which I can leave something behind that's meaningful, that people can kind of recognize and still experience and share after I'm gone. Where I think, I've looked at being a film director, looked at doing animation and stuff. And for me, at least, those industries, I feel like I can't break in as well. And I don't see a clear vision for me on how I do that. Where with games, I'm kind of, even when I'm burnt out, maybe in a moment of giving up, there's always like a little light of like, oh, okay, maybe there's this way I can do it. And that's changed year by year. It's changed into something different, but it's always developed. And so I think you just have a passion for it. And if you don't have it, that's okay. It's okay not to make games. I've known of people who like left the industry, which is like fair enough. I get why, because it's not always the best experience. But I think that yeah, if you have a passion for it, you're just going to keep coming back to it, like anything else. Like I know people who are writers and they have these awful burnouts, but like when they're rested and recovered, they just go back to writing. And it's the same with me in games. Like when I have a spare moment, I'm going to work on a game. Like that's just what I'm going to do. Um, yeah. So I guess that's kind of my answer to the question, really, very, very broadly.
Yeah, are you a person that finds yourself fixating on different hobbies, or is there something about game dev specifically that's the thing you always come back to?
Definitely game dev's a thing. Like also there's like the whole YouTube video editing aspect. Like I love producing videos. Um, but that does burn me out more quickly, but it's also easier and faster to produce. Like I've been working on one game for 4 years. I can get out a video on YouTube in a day if I have to, usually 3 to 4 if it's like a high quality one. But I also think games in of itself is such a broad spectrum of different hobbies together. Like with painting, right? You've got your canvas and your paint, and that's kind of it. You can focus on sub elements of that, like shading and movement and whatever. But with games, it's like I'm programming and I'm programming the different aspects of it, like whether you're using physics or saving the game aspect or optimizing game loops or any sort of that thing. That's like whole one encapsulated part of games. Then there's 3D art, which is, can be hard or sculpting models. Then there's the whole UV unwrapping, rigging, texturing. Then there's the whole design aspect of it as well. What makes good gameplay. Yeah, I think the reason why I keep going back to games is because there's just so much to do. If I'm burnt out on one thing, I can always go to another aspect of it and work on it. So there's always something to do in games. So I don't have many other hobbies, I would say, aside from like going on walks and watching movies and TV and, kind of the regular thing everyone else does. But it's kind of my obsession.
Yeah. Now you mentioned YouTube there, and not only do you have a ton of game dev experience, but you also have a lot of YouTube experience. So your own channel has been around for over 6 years. And you also, I saw, worked on the ShadowVersity channel. So just what was it like working on a channel with 1.65 million subscribers?
Oh man, that's such a tough question to answer to, because I think working for Shad, it's not. I mean, even just working for YouTubers in general, I would say that especially subscriber count now in 2025 doesn't mean as much as other aspects of the channel. So you probably notice if you go through, viewership was something that we really struggled with in terms of having consistent viewers, and having, there was always a lot of issues around revenue and that sort of thing. I think working for Shad, I worked for Shad for 3 years, and one thing that made me realize working for him was that I do not want to be a full-time YouTuber. I don't want that to be my main source of revenue, because it's hard. It's a lot of hard work to the point where you're spending, I don't know, maybe 12, 14 hours a day just focusing on the channel, stressing about the channel, and you're doing 6 days a week, basically. Like that's not me personally. Shad always paid, I was 8 hours, 5 days a week. But in terms of the amount of input Shad did and how much he was working on it, was a lot. And it's also just a lot of stress. The algorithm on YouTube is this big black hole that no one understands. And anyone who tells you that they do and you should buy their course wouldn't be selling you a course if they actually knew how to use the algorithm. So a lot of my work there, right, even though we had this, I think it was really good to see in terms of viewers. I could actually, for the first time, see live watchable viewer counts when we uploaded a video. And that was really good training to understand how the video performed. So when I worked for Shad, when we uploaded, which I think we had a schedule, was usually, we had a bunch of videos going out, but the major ones I think was like a Thursday or a Friday. And we would upload it we got into work around 9 a.m. and would upload it either then or 10 a.m. I think. I can't remember now. My memory's fading from me. But that first hour, you would watch the views, and depending on how the views were in that first hour would basically tell you how that video is going to be for the next year. If we reached a certain threshold, you knew it was going to be a good amount. But if we're struggling, we would basically be in emergency mode, changing titles and thumbnails to get interest. And it was crazy to see times where out the gate it was really low, and then you would change a thumbnail. And this was before A/B testing and all of that. We would just change it in that first hour every maybe 15 minutes or half an hour, and you would literally see just the views spike up when you changed it. Sometimes it'd be a bit of a delay in terms of people getting that and refreshing it. But that was something I learned a lot about, just how much analytics and algorithms are your focus. And there's all it was we could talk more about it. I could probably talk a whole podcast episode about working for a full-time YouTuber, because it was such a journey. But yeah, it's definitely, I would say, at least working for Shad, it felt more like working for like a family business or a small business that you would locally than it was anything big or glamorous. Despite the numbers, like Shad lived a very normal life out in the country with his family. The most unique thing was just his quirky personality of loving castles and medieval stuff. But like a lot of working for it was just like a 9 to 5 with a lot of intense work. Like video editing itself, I think, is a very hard thing. And I was also the camera operator for a lot of it. So I built up a lot of upper body strength from holding the camera still. And I think the biggest thing I could say is like there was no day that was ever the same. Some days it would just be in the studio recording something or editing something. Some days I was going to the local grocery store getting a bunch of fruit and vegetables. And when people ask me, why do you need 6 coconuts? I'd say, well, we're testing a katana today, so we need to know, how well it slices and that, and look at me funny. Other days we had times we would travel across the state to some medieval festivals and would spend all day filming there, like a business trip, which was crazy to see. And other days, it was just us struggling to think how we can, work as a business. Because at the end of the day, like there's no formula for YouTube, right? And so if you work as a carpenter or a nurse or whatever, or a teacher, like, kind of how the business works and how income comes in and stuff. With YouTube, right, they can change things. Like when Shorts first appeared, we were like, oh, YouTube's doing this, and it's kind of dumb. And then eventually we found a format that worked for us. But it never really helped us in many ways, like in terms of saving the channel. It just brought in more viewers, but for Shorts, it doesn't do much. So yeah, anyways, there's a lot I can talk about with that. I can just say, like, it was definitely a very big learning experience. And I think because it was in such a small group, like if I was to work for some other big YouTubers who have giant teams and structure, right, it'd be very different. Where for us, I wouldn't say it was a flat structure, but it was definitely a lot smaller and more intimate. And so there was a lot more that I could do. My role wasn't a single role. I was a lot of things. I was what they needed me to be at that time. So, that was always an experience. And that's also carried off onto my own channel now, where I've looked at how I want to produce videos and make content. I've uploaded less because I realized the rabbit hole that you can go down if you just go into that uploading rabbit hole, especially when you're doing dev content. For me, like, it's a lot of work making those videos. And if you become a content farm, you're not going to have a life. Podcasting, that's why I started doing Playtest panels, because podcasting is something that is actually more manageable. You have a format, and you can look at analytics and find engagement. And there's, once a podcast is successful and going good, it's a lot easier to do than doing the full game dev videos that I was doing personally. So, I think that answers everything, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely it does. The thing I'm wondering about with YouTube today, in particular game dev YouTube, it's similar to your experience with Shadowversity, I think, in that all the big channels you look at, their views, their most popular videos are 3, 4, 5 years ago because it's more competitive, the algorithms change, whatever it may be. So do you think YouTube game dev combo is worth it to start in 2025?
I think it depends what you want to get out of it. I don't think anyone has actually cracked the game dev YouTube algorithm because everyone that I know has gotten big hasn't really done. It's not really game dev. Like I think of Danny, I watched him before he got really big. I loved his old devlogs of he'd just like record each day what he worked on, and then he did like a 1 year in Unity, and then massive. And his videos changed from "Hey guys, welcome to another video with Danny" to "This box is thick, let's drink some milk," and it became very like Roblox Gen Alpha brain rot, which I was like, okay, I'm not into this as much. And even with like Thomas Brush, right, like he's just pivoted to podcasting. It's still game dev related, but like he is doing less of his other content now because he knows the podcasting does well. I think the biggest problem that game dev YouTubers we have is that we're not very consistent. I know a lot of video series which start like I know some devlogs and like they're really good, and then they just stop uploading. I think the only one who's been really consistent with it is Thin Matrix. I love his videos, and I think he's one example of like, okay, if you just remain consistent, do what you know works, like it's viable. But again, it also depends why you're making videos on YouTube. That's something I think I want to kind of explore more and tell people about, because is the reason to make money? Is the reason to be like famous? Is the reason to market your games? Is the reason to get ad revenue from YouTube? And if that's the reason, then you kind of have to figure out around that how you want to then work. Because like, yeah, it's also a hard question asking, is it viable to start a makeup channel or start a vlogging series where it's like, yeah, but you kind of need more than that to understand. And I think it does come down to your personal vision of what you want to create. If you can think of where you want the channel to go, or you have an idea of what you want this thing to be and work towards that, I think definitely you can start YouTube channels and use that as your fire to get you there. But I'd also say that like, yeah, if you see these other big YouTubers and you want to copy them, you're not going to be successful as them, because being a copycat isn't going to help you grow. Like initially it will, but then you'll just be, that person does the same style as everyone else.
And you said something really interesting. You said you don't think anyone has kind of cracked the algorithm in terms of game dev. What do you mean by that?
I don't think we know how to make the best game dev videos. Like I think about other YouTube channels, like I think, Casey Neistat basically cracked the code on vlogging daily. He knew how to do it. And certain podcasters cracked the code on how to do a good podcast. Like we've definitely, different genres have been figured out on the best format, and have found success. But I haven't seen game dev YouTubers who have found a good way to make games, but also YouTube videos. It's hard to do both. So yeah, I think maybe part of it's the audience, and maybe audiences will change, and then we'll find video formats that people like watching. But yeah, I've never seen any game dev YouTubers really reach. I think the other thing too, right, is having that mainstream audience. Danny was probably one that kind of hit that, but I'd still say he's very niche. Like if you look at like the top 10 YouTubers that everyone knows of, like I think like Mark Rober and stuff, like they're science videos, but they're also mainstream audience. I haven't seen anyone try and do that for games, but I also think that it's just really, really hard to do for games.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So do you think in the world where someone cracks that code, it has to be something like a Danny, or is there a world where, similar to Mark Rober, where it's science, but it's sort of elevated and you kind of get this mixture of like, yeah, it's super poppy, it's super kind of eye candy, but also there is a lot of substance to it as well?
Yeah, I think definitely it's not going to be a Danny because Danny already exists, and maybe I think people have kind of already tried to replicate Danny's style, and they find some success. But I think he also kind of copyrighted that in a way. Like if you're not Danny, then why are you doing that style? Um, I think there's definitely someone can crack the code in making videos that show game development in a very digestible way. I think it's hard though because I almost think it's just a documentary style, or a TV show style. Like I would love to see almost like a MythBuster style approach to game dev, and we're kind of seeing that a little bit. I think of Blackthorn Prod with almost his like past the game jams and stuff like that's kind of in the same element. But I think one thing that YouTube's definitely moved away from is like the faceless camera videos. Like I think you need to be in the same space to record content. You can still do online stuff and that's perfectly fine, and we live in a world where that's the thing. But I think to actually stand out from everyone else, you have to almost make it like you would like a vlog series or a TV show, because anyone can up online and make stuff together remotely. But when you're in a team together personally, in the same space, I think that gives you a unique approach, and it also allows a different dynamic that you don't get online. So that's something I would definitely, but then you also need almost like funding for that in the back end to actually start doing that. Or you need to have a group of friends at the right time, at the right place to do it all, which for me, unfortunately, hasn't existed yet. But I do look at ways of almost doing like mini tests. Like I'd love to get my friends all together to do a game jam and record it, and just see how that performs, and then kind of go from there. But I also think that there's just certain elements of game dev that we haven't even considered could be videos in of themselves. Like I know I've seen shorts and other YouTube videos of programmers. They'll decompile game code and like read all the comments. I think it's like Simpsons Hit and Run. They'll read the comment section in that code. So it's like, I don't know why the sort of code's here, but somehow it works. And people love watching that because it's almost like a bit of history and it's something different. But I think in terms of game dev, there's so much more to explore other than just doing, hey guys, welcome to my first devlog. Today I'm building this game. Peace. I'm not going to upload anymore because it's been one video. So I think we can experiment heaps more in the game dev space to do different things. Like for me, I wanted Playtest panel to be in person in a local environment, talking to local devs, which maybe we'll get to one day. It's just right now I'm a bit flustered for time, and getting that organized is a lot of effort. So the fact that, you reach out to people and people come on your podcast, that in and of itself is like a lot of effort that's been put in. And your research, I've also noticed, is also good. So, I can see you putting in effort for things like that. And just to experiment with stuff, I think, is the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you. You mentioned just a second there shorts again. I'm curious what your thoughts are on shorts, and especially coming from a big channel. The way that I'm thinking about it right now is that shorts are fine, but that it's kind of a separate part of YouTube. And I think my experience has been that long form plus short form is not a multiplier. They almost like fight each other. Has that been your experience at all?
Yes, I agree in many aspects that like people who watch shorts just watch shorts, and they hardly ever convert to full-time viewers.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think they're really good marketing. And I think if you make shorts in the right way, you can end up seeing the results in your own channel. I think of Outdoor Boys as a great example. I don't know if you know of him, but he just does these adventure videos. Before everyone started stealing these videos and uploading them onto TikTok and to YouTube Shorts, like he had an average view count, but when people saw what his videos were and went and watched them, that's when he blew up. Like it wasn't even him himself that was doing the marketing. It was all these other people online who were just recycling his content, right? And so I think shorts and short form videos are almost a marketing tool because it has smaller investment for viewers, but then they can get a return on it, or can at least, with certain videos, okay, I want to see more of this. Okay, I know this is what the style of content is. I can go watch it. And so it can also help you as a creator be like, okay, I uploaded part of my video to Shorts and no one's watching it. Maybe my video isn't that good. I need to change up my video, full-length video. That's the thing too, because I've seen Shorts creators try to do full-form videos, and they literally shake their fists at the algorithm saying, you lied to me. I have 1 million subs, but I'm getting no views on my full videos. It's like, well, because they're different. They are different things. You shouldn't see them as the same thing. But you also need to understand that I think there's still some relation, because I've seen examples of it. But yeah, then it just goes into like the business side of like content strategy and like how do you convert viewers of short form videos to your long form videos? At least for me personally, I've seen it more now as a marketing thing where, okay, if my full length video doesn't perform very well, I'm going to package it into a short form content, and hope that people see it and then going to want to find more of that. And look, sometimes people are just going to binge, because the algorithm in terms of short form content is very, very toxic, and it's very much like junk food. You're just going to want to keep eating that. But yeah, I think the hard part with us as creators is that we just need to find the ways that we can make our content work with the tools we've been given, right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we're just being held to an algorithm that we don't control on platforms that we have no say over.
Right. Well, I do have a second Shorts channel, so you've encouraged me to at least keep trying with that. I haven't seen much traction yet, but we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Now, just
like
a little. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I think. Oh man, that was my train of thought. But I was going to say, like, I think the biggest thing with YouTube, right? I've seen the most successful ones are the ones who are the most consistent. So if you keep uploading your videos, you're always going to be in that space and always in that algorithm if you're always uploading. So it may take a very long time, but like even the biggest YouTubers, right, back in the day, like I know PewDiePie, he was uploading for like years and years and years and years and years. Like he didn't stop uploading. I think that was his secret, really. So yeah, I think if you want to see success, like you're just going to keep doing it. And sometimes you got to cut your losses if it's costing you time and money. But like definitely, like yeah, it's always good to keep uploading and keep trying.
Right. Yeah. That's good advice. All right, just a couple quick little random things. One, so from earlier in this conversation, you had mentioned way back at the beginning that you're considering crowdfunding for Coco Loco, that you're a little hesitant against it, but also that you're leaning that way. So what's the hesitancy, and why is that kind of maybe what you're going to do?
So, I mean, I'll kind of break it down. The main problem is resources, right? It would be great to have more people to work on the game. That's what I'd like. The issue is that those resources, realistically, they cost money. I've tried doing. I mean, I'd love to find just at least an artist who could do a rev share model with me, where we just work on the game together and release it. But realistically, right, if I want people to do things I want them to do, you've got to pay them for it. It's very hard to lay like, oh, work on my game for me for free. It doesn't work. I've tried. And there's different revenue streams for getting that money. Obviously, you can go to a publisher. Right now, I'm not in the position where I could work on this game full time. So a publisher wouldn't be the smartest thing to do. There's also harder deadlines with publishing, which I wouldn't want personally with this game. Just because I wouldn't want to promise them, a release or a build at a certain time where I don't fully know I can get it. I would want to at least finish a few games and really know how long something takes before I could promise them. Like there was a thing where it's like, okay, I'll get the save system done in 1 week. It took me a month to do properly. That sort of thing. So I wouldn't want to really go publisher route, and contracts and stuff right now scare me. We're also studying. There's just too much to handle, right? There's also government funding, like in Australia and Melbourne, we have some really good government funding. But I've noticed right now, it's highly competitive. Like I know heaps of people are applying for that funding right now. And they also, at least I've noticed in the games that they've ended up greenlighting, it is less about making commercial product and being a success, like as a game studio, and more about sending a certain message within those games. And I've played some of them, and they're not very well made. And obviously they've been given the funding because the message of their game is good and what the government wants to promote. And whether that's about like climate change, or like certain health aware benefits, or whatever they're trying to push at that time. Like, I'm not saying those games being made are being bad, but rather I think it would be like, I know people who are making really good games who would be commercial successes and actually be supportive in the local games industry if they had that grant support, but they don't get it because their game is about, it's just a basic dungeon crawler RPG that would sell well, but it doesn't have a clear message that the government wants to push right then and there. It's just also very competitive. So and they don't, and I've heard people who've pitched to these government bodies and they ask for feedback, and the feedback is, sorry, it's not the game we're looking for. It's like, okay, but what is the game you're looking for? Maybe I can make it for you. I can get it to you. And they just won't tell you. And so I really don't want to deal with that. And I've seen a few, not horror stories, but I've read through the contracts for them. And it's also very contracts scare me. So when I see one, I'm going to read through it and make sure that I'm not selling away my rights to stuff. And there's also weird things about they won't fund the game fully. You have to find other funding, but you can also convert that into how many hours you've worked on the game so far. Lots of just complex, weird things that can make it stops development, right? You have to stop making the game to figure out, okay, am I doing things correctly? So that's another option where I'm like, that's just not for me. And then the third option is crowdfunding, and that can be in a way of Kickstarter, or it can also be in terms of Patreon, YouTube members, that sort of thing. I think for this one, I wouldn't do any of that more monthly asking for money, just because I feel like people should get something back. And for me, I would give builds of the game for that month back to them to play. But I can't do that right now. So my last option really is to crowdfund in a larger scale, to say, okay, I want to get the game done this much. I'll budget out how much time and effort that would take for contractors to help me with, and then put out a trailer to the internet and beg for money and hope that maybe people care enough about it. The hard part is that I know that, there's a lot less accountability for Kickstarters, and people are very untrustworthy of them. And I think that's changed a bit now. That was definitely happened a few years ago, where everyone's like, don't do Kickstarter. No one funds you. It's terrible. I can see it growing back now. But I am also there's a few people that I want to talk to who have done it, that I want to talk to them about it and get their feedback on before I bite the bullet and actually do it. Because another thing I would do for my next games is probably even just do that revenue stream of get a prototype done, show people what is the game, and then figure out, okay, how much money do I need to finish this game, pitch it to them in a Kickstarter campaign, and then use that money to then finish the game. That's a format I can see myself working with, that gives me enough control for things, but also feel accountable to people who, it's giving the game straight to the customer, which is what I'd rather do than having to give it to a publisher who may not fully understand the customer, or a government body or whoever else. So yeah, that's what I'm doing more research in, and I'm obviously not prepared right now to do that. I think after the Game Expo and I've kind of figured out where we're at, then we'll see whether or not that's something we want to do. It might be for later games, I think, but it is something that I'm looking into and researching, because I kind of can't think of any other ways to make money that would, help make my game, aside from the ones I've mentioned. So, yeah.
Well, I am nearing the end of my time, so let me close with this final question. So I'm calling this podcast the Dev Dream Podcast, mostly because I want to get myself inspired to not give up on making games again and just hear what people's dreams are. So what would you say in this season of life is your dream in terms of game dev?
My dream for game dev is just to make enough money to live and make the things I love to make. It would be an absolute dream if I could wake up every day and just work on games that I enjoy making and that people love playing enough that would then fund me to, live in a house have a family, and live life. It would be awesome as well, to make games that are interesting and groundbreaking and, help push the industry. But I think for me, right, I think even in my retirement, when I get old, all I'm going to do is live by the ocean and make the games I want to make. Because that's what makes me happy. And I think if I can find a way to make games I'm happy making and then also allow me to profit off that and be able to live a life that's comfortable. Like I'm not talking, giant mansion or Ferraris or whatever. I just want a, 3-bedroom home where I can have breakfast with bacon and eggs in the morning, right? Like that for me is the dream. And I think it's entirely possible. It just means a lot of effort on my end because that's the thing too, right? It's my responsibility to do that. No one else is going to give that to me. So yeah, that's the dream.
Well, Nathan, that's a fantastic dream. I hope that someday it can become a reality for you. Thanks again for joining me today. I really appreciated our conversation.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for the awesome questions. You're doing a great job. I know how hard it is to do these. I've done them myself, and you're a pro at it already. So, keep up with it because I can see you going very far with it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Right, let's end this recording.